For as many new things that Super Mario Maker 2 brings to the table, you can always have more. And just as the original game added additional content after release in the form of free updates, I fully expect the same as Super Mario Maker 2, or at least I hope so. Especially given the fact that there's a giant gap in the extra styles section. And that's what brings us here today, to discuss my top 10 hopes and dreams for Super Mario Maker 2's DLC. And hey, the last time I did this, most of them ended up coming true in some form. So you're welcome, everyone. And with that, let's see if we can make it happen again in round 2. I want the Super Mario 3D World style to be fixed. Yeah, I realize the airship has likely already sailed in this one, but the point remains that having 3D World exist independently of the other 4 Mario styles kind of sucks. It goes completely against the freewheeling nature of the original game, locking you into a particular style before you may even know if it even works best for the level you have in mind. The creation process is often a messy one, and I love playing around with the different styles and naturally discovering which one might work best as my course took shape, whether for gameplay or aesthetic reasons. And since Super Mario 3D World is the least flexible style by far, I find myself often ignoring it since I don't want to risk having my entire level wiped out and having to rebuild it from scratch only because I later realized that another style might work better. And this really should be fixed. The absolute best case scenario would be going back to the drawing board and treating 3D World as any other style, creating new 3D versions of the enemies and objects from the other styles that don't currently exist. And likewise, making 2D versions of 3D World's objects and enemies for the older styles. Part of the appeal and fun of the original Super Mario Maker was seeing how enemies and objects would look had they been invented in a different time, as well as being able to interact with others from a different generation. And yet, Super Mario Maker 2 did disappointingly little to advance the idea. Of course, I don't expect this to change this late in the game, but I do think a solid middle ground to be to, well, retain the ground between styles. As in the basic fundamental design of your level, such as ground placement, blocks, and maybe even common enemies. That way you at least don't have to rebuild the entire thing from scratch. Point is, Super Mario Maker 2 should encourage experimentation instead of punishing it. So this is at the top of my list for things to change. And not just for the 3D World style, but any other extra styles that may come down the line too. And speaking of which, I want more styles. Or at least one. Come on, you knew this was coming. Especially since one of the very few things I mentioned back in my original Super Mario Maker DLC video that hasn't yet come to fruition was, you guessed it, a Super Mario Bros. 2 style. Which hurts even more in a game that already has a 2 in its title. Come on! But there's still time to fix that, and for better or worse, the fact that it will likely appear as an extra style does mean that its relatively distinct gameplay will no longer present any compatibility issues. And Super Mario Bros. 2 could bring so many unique elements to the table, whether it's plucking turnips and throwing them at enemies, or plucking enemies and throwing them at enemies. Which of course would include a whole new cast as well, like Shy Guys, Snippets, and Pidgeys. Which, by the way, could be the Lakitus of this style, allowing me to hijack their magic carpet and ride it around. Which I freaking need, by the way, so I can finally recreate the Cave of Wonders from Aladdin. But since Nintendo seems largely intent on ignoring Super Mario Bros. 2, well, forever, there is another Mario with a 2 in the title that I think could work. Super Mario Land 2. It would offer a side of Mario not yet represented at all in Super Mario Maker 2, being the handheld games. And it would make a ton of sense seeing as how the Switch is a handheld system. And with Super Mario Land 2 being one of the oddest Marios yet, it could allow for some truly unique opportunities. I'm already picturing how the horror-esque Pumpkin Zone could fill in for the ghost houses, or heck, why not turn the sky level up a notch and make it outer space themed instead? Then there are the crazy new enemies like this Jason fellow, as well as power-ups. Bunny ears, anyone? But most importantly, instead of Bowser, we'd of course have Wario as a final boss. How cool would that be? But then there's a third option, or should I say a 3D option. Because now that Super Mario 3D World has opened the floodgates to games that weren't even 2D in the first place, well, maybe anything will go. Like, what if we got a 2D version of Super Mario 64, where you have a health meter and use time-limited caps instead of power-ups, and the goal is to collect power stars instead of reaching a flagpole. And you better believe it'll be wrapped up in a low-poly aesthetic. Or, to go even further, could you imagine a 2D version of Super Mario Odyssey, where you can throw Cappy to capture enemies instead of defeating them? It would provide a ton of new ways of getting around in a 2D environment. I can't believe I'm about to say this, but even a 2D version of Mario Sunshine could be pretty neat, with Flood's nozzles taking the place of the power-ups. I gotta admit, launching into the air or dashing across the water could be a lot of fun. just as long as he doesn't talk.
I hope to be of assistance.
I want tilted pipes, plus more warp options. Super Mario Maker 2 finally added slopes, hallelujah! But where are my tilted pipes at? They've been a thing ever since Super Mario World, and have reappeared countless times since, including in the new Super Mario Bros. Games. And to rub salt in the wound, the Super Mario Bros. 3 style even teases them with a pipe-themed ground in the jungle theme. Just give me tilted pipes! And I don't want them just for the cool aesthetics, but also the gameplay possibilities. Because those tilted pipes have often acted as mini cannons, blasting Mario across the map as he exits. And that could be a really fun tool to play with, especially if the blast strength vary depending on the pipe color. Finally, I want Nintendo to restore the 1 in 3-way functionality of the warp pipe. Yeah, I realize they were more of a quirk than an intentional feature in the original Super Mario Maker, but they were still incredibly useful options, and enabled some truly novel level design that's straight up impossible in Super Mario Maker 2, which is why I would love for both of them to be adopted as official features. One-way pipes because it would allow you to warp a player to an area with no option to backtrack without having to resort to ugly workarounds. Heck, they could even do the Mario 64 thing where the pipe disappears after warping. And the 3-way warp pipe is essential to creating the illusion of a player backtracking to a previous area, only now it's been completely changed. Which again is impossible to do in Super Mario Maker 2 as is. I just really hope this doesn't remain a pipe dream. And speaking of which, I want more clear pipe options. Clear pipes are such a cool idea. And yet, there is so much more potential for them in Super Mario Maker 2, because in Super Mario 3D World, they weren't just warp pipes that you could see into, but were instead a unique and interactive form of transportation, featuring branching paths and multiple entrances or exits rather than the strictly one-way affairs of Super Mario Maker 2. So yeah, clear pipes deserve more, and an easy solution would be to let you connect clear pipes to each other, creating whatever wacky shapes and pathways that you desire. Furthermore, I think clear pipes could really help put the 3D in 3D World, by providing an option to have the shaft extend into the background. That way you can retain all the functionality without having the pipe itself acting as a giant barrier in the world. I want improvements to the interface. Super Mario Maker 2 doesn't really offer much in the way of interface improvements, but one of its few new features does lay the groundwork for what could be something far greater. So as is, you can zoom out when editing to reveal 4 screens at once, which does help with you understanding your own level's layout. But that's about it! Because, like a museum or Cameron's place, you can look, but you can't touch. Why? Okay, sure, it probably wouldn't be all that precise when using your finger, but it could be with a stylus, allowing you to plot terrain and place objects with far greater ease, understanding, and speed, all without having to awkwardly scroll the camera around constantly. Furthermore, I wish Nintendo would add a proper cut and paste option, complete with clipboard. That way, we can finally copy elements between the main areas and sub-areas, as I'm getting really tired of having to rebuild sections from scratch in each one. I want to mix and match water or lava in any level. I can't believe that Super Mario Maker 2 gave us all these tools to play around with water and lava, but then locked them behind only forest and castles. What a waste of potential! And it doesn't really even make sense considering that Super Mario World, which introduced the idea of fluctuating water, not only didn't have a single forest level with water in it, but the one level in the game that did have fluctuating water was a normal ground-based level, which as you probably guessed is impossible to recreate in Super Mario Maker 2. Same goes for the flooded castles. Letting the player mix and match a liquid to the level theme would open up so many creative possibilities. I mean, how else am I supposed to recreate the Cave of Wonders level without having lava underground? Don't make me waste a wish on it. I want more classic enemies and power-ups. When it comes to representing the original Super Mario Bros., Super Mario Maker 2 has it pretty well covered, with every single enemy and power-up making an appearance. Unfortunately, the rest of the Mario series isn't nearly as well represented, which to be fair does make sense seeing as how they have a lot more material to work with. But there is still a lot of untapped potential that Super Mario Maker 2 barely capitalizes on. When it comes to enemies, Spikes from Super Mario Bros. 3 would add a unique roaming enemy type with projectile capabilities, which would gain physics-based properties in the new Super Mario Bros. U style. And speaking of Mario 3 enemies, where are the Fire Bros at? I can't believe they made the cut for 3D World, but not the game that they first appeared in. What the heck? But Super Mario World actually has it far worse off in terms of representation. Consider the fact that not a single dinosaur-based enemy from Dinosaur Island made the cut. Where is Rex or Dino Rhino or Dino Torch? All of which would bring something new to the table, whether it's taking multiple hits or spitting fire. But beyond dinosaurs, what are the Chargin Chucks? These guys might be the quintessential Super Mario World enemy, and yet they're nowhere to be found. And they can add a lot to Super Mario Maker 2, effectively acting as a mini-boss like Boom Boom. And then we have New Super Mario Bros. U, in which not a single unique enemy from that game appears in Super Mario Maker 2. So I think a good place to start would be adding Waddle Wings, especially given the lack of native flying enemies in Super Mario Maker 2. And in a grander sense, there's a serious lack of boss-type characters. There's only so many times you can add wings to Bowser after all. So why not bring in the Koopalings that have appeared in most of the 2D games represented in Super Mario Maker 2? Even though they all may play similarly, they could all have a unique trait like in the games themselves, opening up the ways in which you can use them far beyond the main games themselves. I could go on and on about the enemies, but power-ups are similarly out of whack, with Super Mario Bros. 3 and U specifically both missing a ton. So I think it's about time that Nintendo adds at least one more new power-up slot across the board. So for Super Mario Bros. 3, I think the Frog Suit would be a great candidate, as its added precision could open up all new kinds of gameplay possibilities when underwater, which would also make it a satisfying reward to discover. Moving on to Super Mario World, I think the P-Balloon could be a fun inclusion, enabling a slower, more methodical type of aerial gameplay. And speaking of flying, how in the heck is New Super Mario Bros. U's marquee power-up, the Squirrel Suit, completely missing in action here? That really needs to be fixed above all else. Now, if we do add one more power-up slot across the board, then what would that mean for the original Super Mario Bros., which of course already has all of its power-ups represented in the game? So what could be left? Well, that would be the Mystery Mushroom from the original Super Mario Maker, of course, along with all of its assorted costumes. I can't tell you how much I miss being able to create stages based around specific Nintendo characters, and I really do hope that they come back, because they, along with the other power-ups I've just mentioned, would open up a ton of gameplay and thematic creative possibilities. I want a Super Mario Run mode. Okay, look, hear me out. I hate auto-scrolling levels. They're slow, they're tedious, because they prevent you from playing at your own pace, making you feel like a prisoner of the screen itself. And yet, one of my own favorite creations is a Super Meat Brothers Forever level, which is auto-scrolling. So maybe I've changed. Maybe I actually don't hate auto-scrolling levels. Or maybe there's a gameplay reason for that. Because unlike most auto-scrolling levels, this one doesn't move slow. In fact, it moves fast. Maybe too fast. Because there is literally no time to waste in that stage. You have to keep moving constantly, otherwise you'll be making quick friends with the game over screen. However, that's only because I designed it that way. Because by default, even the fastest scrolling speed in Super Mario Maker 2 isn't fast enough to prevent Mario from outrunning it. Which is why I had to find ways of slowing him down, such as using wrong way conveyor belts and multiple wall jumping sections. But there has to be a better way, right? And yeah, I think there is. And it already exists. Because instead of adding an even faster auto-scrolling option that would introduce its own issues, why not take inspiration from a game that's all about constantly running? Yep, I think adding a Super Mario Run option would be the perfect solution. In this way, it wouldn't be a true auto-scrolling level. Instead, it would be an auto-running level, with a player only having to worry about two major inputs, being jumping and using power-ups. And instead of making it its own style, I think it'd be much better as an option available in any style, allowing you to create levels in the classic styles where you always have to keep moving to the right. Whereas in the new Super Mario Bros. U or 3D World styles, the wall jumps would make it play much closer to Mario Run itself, allowing me to backtrack somewhat in some limited circumstances. I really do think a Super Mario Run option would open up a lot of gameplay opportunities, and one that players like myself hopefully wouldn't hate. I want some proper playtesting options. Having someone playtest your own stages is crucial to making a good, let alone great level, as it's impossible to foresee how someone might play through your level without seeing it for yourself. Players might find ways to cheese your level, break it, or even worse, get stuck in it. And even Super Mario Maker 2's tutorial drives this point into the ground. Playtesting is important. And yet, the game really provides no means of doing so yourself, beyond inviting a friend over and having them try it on your own Switch. And that's not really a realistic option most of the time. Let me tell you, it really sucks to post a level for the world to play, only to discover that part of your level isn't working as intended. And I've seen countless other creators experience something similar too, to the point where they had to delete then re-upload their own stage, losing all the likes and comments and the ID code in the process. It's a pretty big bummer. So I have a few ideas in mind to help resolve this. First, let us post levels unlisted like on YouTube. That way we can share it with close friends first for feedback and make adjustments based on it before shipping it out for the rest of the world to play. And what would be even better is if the game allowed us to download the replays of particular players to see exactly how they're playing through the stage. Finally, I would love it if we could just upload newer versions of the same stage, with the latest one becoming the default version, but the older ones would still be available too if someone wants to go back to those. I want world maps. I've been saying this ever since before the original Super Mario Maker came out. But now my angle's a little bit different because I've realized an important truth. Making just one good level is really tough, let alone enough to fill an entire world map. But I have a solution for this one too. Playlists. So my idea is that, like on YouTube, you can group together any array of levels that you want, whether created by yourself or anyone else. And you can then organize them into a world map, laying out the exact order, including branching paths and whatever else you want. And you could then post that world map in an entirely new section of Course World. This would even allow you to collaborate with other creators to produce a true mini Mario adventure. And wouldn't that be great? I think it would really help bring the world together. And there you have it, my top 10 hopes for Super Mario Maker 2's DLC. But what do you think of my choices, and what do you hope to see for yourself? Let us know by posting in the comments below. And with that, thanks for watching, and make sure to click that subscribe button and ring that bell for more on Super Mario Maker 2 and everything else Nintendo Switch. We'll catch you later, bye.